Shalom, I'm Richard Schwartz, President Emeritus of Jewish Badge, and author of this book, Vegan Revolution, Saving Our World, Revitalizing Judaism. And this is one more in my series of podcasts where I'm trying to interview as many possible key vegetarians, vegans, animal rights activists, environmentalists. And we have a super special guest, Rabbi Akiva Gersh, and he's a vegan rabbi. And I've had the pleasure of taking his 6-session course, really learned a lot, and I've heard him speak a number of times and sort of familiar with much what he has to do. So we have much to learn from it. So welcome, Rabbi Akiva, to our podcast.
Thank you so much, Richard. Really a pleasure and a great honor to be here with you specifically. So thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. So I want to start getting a little bit background, your story, how you became a vegan, how you became such a vegan activist, and very properly the vegan rabbi.
Okay, so very long story, very, very short. I grew up outside of New York City in a suburb, and I grew up in a very kind of typical suburban culture and atmosphere. I did have a very strong connection Jewishly growing up, a very kind of light cultural connection, went to public school, and kind of grew up in that suburban bubble where, people don't really think about the consequences of one's actions for the most part. And I grew up eating a very, very heavy meat, dairy, and egg diet. I ate very little fruits and vegetables. I did not eat very healthy growing up. But no one really talked about what we eat, why we eat, how what we eat impacts the world around us, whether that be the planet, the animals, or our own health. That I started to discover in college, my first year in college. I started to hear things in high school, but they didn't really sink in so well or so deep. My first year in college, I had lots of epiphanies about the world, lots of realizations. And the main realization, or many of these realizations, were rooted in the fact that we, modern day humans, are destroying our planet through our everyday, seemingly innocent actions. What we wear, what we buy, what we use, what we pour down drains. The impact of our purchases and our lifestyle choices and our food choices are having such a global impact that it is causing unprecedented disaster and destruction. So after that first year, I decided two things. One, to become an environmental studies major at the college I was studying at Brown University, and second, to become a vegetarian. That was 1994. A year later, 1995, I decided to go vegan for the same exact reasons. I was thinking about a lot. I realized all the reasons I went vegetarian are probably the reasons I should be vegan. I went vegan, and that was that, and really, changed my course of life, my life path, what I wanted to do, what I was doing, how I was living, radically different from how I grew up. And then as time went on in college, I started to also feel an urge to learn more and connect more spiritually. I felt like I didn't really grow up with a spiritual tradition. I was looking all over the world in other traditions and cultures, looking for that thing or those things that I was really wanting. Ritual, tradition, connection. Judaism, unfortunately, was the last place I thought to look, but eventually I came full circle to Judaism, specifically through the lens of the environment. I started to discover in my third year in college Jewish teachings about the environment, about caring for the environment, about connection to the environment, about animal welfare, that absolutely blew my mind. I had no idea Judaism said anything about any of these things. I thought Judaism was irrelevant, archaic, stuck in the past, had nothing to do with the modern world. I realized I was very wrong. And that really opened up a path for me to discover Judaism more. And as I did, I liked what I was seeing, and I connected to it more and more, and eventually took on an Orthodox religious lifestyle, and was learning in yeshiva for many, many years. And eventually my yeshiva studies turned into studying to become a rabbi, and that's where everything kind of came together, and the vegan rabbi came to be.
Okay, quite a beautiful story, and had much success, and I wish you much continued success. So the bottom line, you've sort of indicated a little bit about this already, but if somebody came to you and said, okay, why should I, as a Jew, be a vegan? What's the basic answer?
So what I like to say is that, look, obviously Judaism gives us the permission to eat animals. It's there, it's in chapter 9, Bereshit, Genesis, it's clear. One, we have to go back to the original diet and realize and see and understand that the original diet was purely vegan, right? The diet that God gave humanity in the Garden of Eden, and that lasted until chapter 9 of Genesis and the generation of Noah after the flood. So I would say that though permission was given, there are many teachings, and all I do is bring teachings. None of the things I teach, are coming from my own thoughts, my own ideas. They're all rooted in text. They're all rooted in traditional text that the Jewish world has already come to accept in a very, very big and strong way. And I share that there's many sources that talk about how the permission to eat meat was a concession. Rav Kook says it was a temporary concession. It was a result of the fall of humanity. That's why there was a flood in the first place, right? A moral and spiritual fall. And that, according to Rav Kook and others, were destined to return to the original diet one day. Besides that, I share that there's no obligation to eat meat, to eat animals in Judaism today. Back in the day when there was a temple, there was an obligation to eat certain sacrifices. That's a whole other thing. Nothing to do with our world today. We don't have a temple. We haven't had a temple in 2,000 years. Will the future temple have animal sacrifices again? Nobody knows. People talk about it. We'll only know when it happens. But for the here and the now, right now, what we do know is that one, there's no obligation. And two, that by supporting the meat, dairy, egg, and fish industries, we're supporting the destruction of God's world. It hands down. It's clear. It's been shown and proven over and over again, the destructive impact these industries are having on animal life, on ecosystems, on the entire planet. So and on top of that, we have Jewish laws rooted in the Torah, from the Torah, not just a nice idea, not just a custom, not just it's a mitzvah, using that kind of phrase that people use. It's a law. We have the laws from the Torah of Tzar Ba'alei Chayim, not causing unnecessary pain and suffering to animals. Ba'al Tashchit, not wasting resources unnecessarily. These two things are happening every second in the meat, dairy, egg, and fish industries. So add up all that together. Yeah, it doesn't say in any chapter in Genesis or any book from the Torah, go vegan. Of course it doesn't say that. But we're supposed to, as Jews, we're meant to read between the lines. We are encouraged to take the ancient laws and practices and apply them to our modern day. And to me, it seems clear as day that the proper application of these ancient laws is to desist and to remove, to distance oneself from these industries, from this way of eating, and eat a plant-based diet, going back to the original way of eating, which is going to be the way that we eat in the future. And maybe, who knows, by eating that future diet now will help that future grand world come even quicker.
Okay, well, great answer. Thank you very much. And so now, as I mentioned, you're the vegan rabbi. What are some specific things that you're doing as a vegan rabbi to get a very, very, very important message out there?
So I started, Vegan Rabbi as a page first on Facebook and then on Instagram, just to kind of hit the social media world, sharing these teachings, and people really took to them. It started to grow. It continues to grow, thank God. And then above and beyond the teachings that I share publicly on Facebook and Instagram, I eventually, as you mentioned before, I developed an online course, which people have been taking, thank God. And that's really going into depth, really into depth, to go looking at these sources and really seeing how this, picture fits together that supports going vegan in a world today based on Jewish law and values. I also started to do Zoom lectures for different communities around the world. I just did a speaking tour in conjunction with Jewish Veg about a month and a half ago in the States, going to about 9 different cities over 2 weeks. It was a big opportunity and pleasure and blessing to do that. So really getting out there. I'm starting to plan the next speaking tour, God willing, maybe for the fall time, late fall after the Jewish holidays. The most recent thing I got into, which is interesting, I had no expectation to get into this, but it really came from many of my followers who are starting to reach out to me, who are single and looking to get married, and they're dating, and they're saying it's hard enough in the Jewish world to date. As a vegan or vegetarian, it's even harder. Can you help me? Do you know anyone? And at first I'm like, that's just not my thing. I don't know what you're talking about. But then as I kept hearing that from more and more people, I realized, you know what, somebody's got to do something. There's something here. There's a need. I looked around the web. I didn't find anyone doing it. So I'm like, I'll take it on myself. I started very, very small. And over the past 10 to 12 months, it's been growing kind of organically, but now I'm full on doing, dating, coaching, and matchmaking for Jewish, vegan, and vegetarian singles to help them find people who share their values, and sharing their compassion for animals and for their desire for a better world, and strengthen human health and all of those different things. And it's been tremendous and it's been wonderful. I've linked up with Eliza Ben Shalom, who's the star of the Netflix show Jewish Matchmaking. She's really excited about this niche. So it's a lot of amazing things happening with that. Again, something I never expected, but I'm realizing how it totally fits into the vegan rabbi vision, because getting people together to get married and to build a home and to create a family together, that's just strengthening this not only this message, but this practice even more in the world by raising families based on these values as well.
Okay, some great things, and I wish you much success. Now, you made such a strong case before for Jews to be vegans. Seems to be an anomaly here that with that strong case, yet, as you know, the vast majority of rabbis are not vegan, not even vegetarians. The vast majority of Jews are not. Do you have any idea to explain that, and any thoughts about how we might change that to get the far more Jews, rabbis, etc., to become at least vegetarians and even more importantly, vegans?
I think that's a great question and probably the hardest question, but I do have an answer. I don't know if it's the best answer, but my understanding of that is there's a few aspects. One, I think people are misled, with all due respect to all the rabbis out there and all the Jews out there. I think they're misled into thinking that it actually is an obligation to eat meat on the holidays, even on Shabbat. But when you look in the texts, it doesn't say that. I've looked at many books of Jewish law. At the most, if it mentions it at all, it mentions that it's a mitzvah. But many of those books, and mitzvahs, that word mitzvah is used in all kinds of ways. It doesn't always mean a commandment or an obligation, ironically, right? Because the original use of that word or meaning of the word did mean that or does mean that. Right. But I've seen.
By the way, a mitzvah that comes from the Ve'era, from negative things, is not really would be a mitzvah. So even if it wasn't mitzvah, then the fact that there's so many negative things that go into
it. Exactly. So I think the most you can say. I've seen books of Jewish law that say that it's a mitzvah, but it's not an obligation. That's the language. It's a mitzvah, but it's lo chovah. It's not an obligation, which is very interesting, right?
So we have
one book so far. Yeah, the one book I saw so far, Piskei Teshuvot, brings an opinion that it is an obligation today still to eat only on the holidays. So let's just pause it for a second. Even if you want to go with the argument that there is an obligation to eat meat on the holidays, right? That's like 2.5 weeks a year, right? Mm-hmm. Pesach is a week, Sukkot is a week, and Shavuot is 1 day or 2 days if you live outside of Israel. So maximum 2.5 weeks, right? And that's only on Yom Tov. It's not the whole Chol Moed. It's talking about the Yom Tov. So you're down to less than a week. You're down to half a week, even if you want to go with that argument that it's an obligation. You're down to half a week of the entire year. The rest of the year, absolutely not. There's absolutely no obligation, including Shabbat, right? But, okay, having said that, still you see many books that either don't mention it as a mitzvah even, or say that it's a mitzvah but not an obligation. So it's very clear from many sources that it's not an obligation. Okay, so I think it's just a misnomer, it's a misunderstanding that it is, right? Because back in the day it was, I don't want to get into all the technical details, but when the temple stood on Yom Tov, on the holidays, there was one thing to do with eating meat that was an obligation, and that was it. Today, that's a very, very different case. All right, but even the opinion, I'll get a little technical, even the opinion that says that it still is an obligation today, it says that if it causes the person harm to eat meat or they just don't like it, then it's not an obligation. So let's just talk about causing nezik, causing damage to oneself. We know that a meat-based diet is not the healthiest diet, and we know, of course, that it's not good for the world, like we said already today. So that's one thing. I think it's just a misunderstanding, a miscontinuation of this idea. Number two is I think people are really tied to custom, and the custom does have a very strong place in Judaism for sure. a very important place. But like you were saying before, a custom cannot override a law, right? A custom of doing something is breaking the law while you're doing it. So there's no use to the custom anymore. And the third thing I'll say is that, look, Torah is very, very vast. There's billions of teachings and details of laws, and I think, while you and me and many others out there who really connect to this, we search after this, we deeply connect to it. I think other people who maybe don't have that natural or developed connection to these kinds of ideas, they see it and they move on. They go on to the next law, they go on to the next teaching, the next learning in the book that they're learning in, and it doesn't really go in, it doesn't get internalized. Even though it's there, it's very, very present. The teachings, the quotes, the laws are all there in our large collection of sources. The question is it being internalized, and is it inspiring people to change? And we know that Judaism is all about that these laws and these teachings and these values are meant to inspire us to mold ourselves and to guide ourselves into the best possible way of living.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Wondering what you think of an idea I've been promoting, and that is to restore the ancient Jewish New Year for animals, as you know, originally for tithing, for sacrifices, to transform that into a day. This is Tu B'Shvat, as you know, was transformed and become pretty much like an almost like a Jewish environmental day. But to transform it into a day to increase awareness of some of the teachings I've already mentioned, Jewish beautiful teachings on compassion for animals, and how far the realities for animals are in so many settings, but especially on factory farms, are today.
I think it's not only a wonderful idea, I think it's a necessary idea. I think it's really, really important, because you're right. I mean, Tu B'Shvat wasn't always what it is today. It was an ancient kind of tithing calendar demarcation kind of day. People didn't celebrate with Tu B'Shvat seders in the past. It's a very, very more recent thing. I mean, it started a few hundred years ago in Tzfat, but it became a very popular thing only in the last few decades, right? And it's interesting, even though Tu B'Shvat has turned into kind of like the Jewish version of Earth Day, it doesn't mean that people are really getting inspired to change their lives to make a difference environmentally. So I think it's really important, just like what happened with Tu B'Shvat, to take it to the next level, right? For that reason that I just said, Tu B'Shvat is very sweet, it's very important, it's very nice. People have a good time doing it, but let's take it deeper. Let's really, pull back those curtains and see, okay, so what is the impact of the way that we're eating? Let's talk about it. Right? Let's make a Yom Iyun, as you say in Hebrew, like a Yom Limud, like a day of learning about it. I think that could be really, really powerful. Taking something ancient that doesn't apply to our modern day life anymore, but kind of morph it in a way that it could, just like people did with Tu B'Shvat. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, great, thank you. Now, you've mentioned very eloquently the great threats to the world from these animal-based diets. So, what do you think of what people are pushing more and more, that there's no way we're going to avert a climate catastrophe without a major shift toward plant-based or vegan diets? And again, partly because of the methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas, but more importantly, the incredible thing that over 40% of the ice-free land is now used for grazing for animals and growing feed crops for animals. And because of that, there was so many fewer trees. Carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has gone up to very dangerous levels, way beyond what the climate experts think is a threshold for sustainability. So only by getting away from the animal-based diet, reforesting, getting more and more trees to sequester that carbon dioxide, bring it down to a safe level, can we avert a climate catastrophe? What do you think of that argument in general?
I absolutely agree with it. Everything I've read and everything I've researched supports that idea and that reality, and we see it. And I mean, the numbers are there, right? Obviously, there's many things that we are doing in our modern day human society that are, there's many things that we're doing that are impacting the world, the environment, ecosystems, animals in negative ways, right? It's also the purchases we make, the products we use, the things we pour down the drain, like I said at the beginning, the clothing we wear, for sure. but absolutely what we're eating and the industries that we're supporting and what these industries are doing to the world and how they are raising animals in the billions. When I first heard that, between 70 and 100 billion land animals are killed every year for human consumption, I had been vegan for years before I heard that number. I was absolutely shocked, right? And so for sure, on such a massive scale, and again, we just see the numbers, but it's how can we not believe that raising animals for food in this kind of way, with this kind of intense input, right? The intense need for such an intense and large input, which is coming from other industries and other factories, which is also causing pollution, and then the destructive output of these industries. It's from both sides. It's causing tremendous damage to the world, and it's not only supporting, but it's increasing the problems of climate change. 100%.
Right. Now, as you know, one argument that's often brought up is somebody saying, I know it's terrible how the animals are treated. I know it's bad for the environment, but I just, the taste, the tava, the lust that I have. But as you also know, there are now plant-based substitutes. And they say it has the texture, taste, appearance so close to the meat and other animal products that people can't tell the difference. Not the healthiest, but it could be a transition. So what do you think the effect of these plant-based substitutes, and maybe later on, although it wouldn't be vegan, what they call cultured meat, taking cells from animals and creating meat from that? What's your thoughts about all that?
Right. Right, we hear that argument a lot. And, when I became vegan in 1995, for the most part, if you went to someone's house and ate a vegan meal or went to a vegan restaurant, you're for the most part eating brown rice and lentils or tofu, that was pretty much the range. But things have changed tremendously. And what's happening now in the vegan food world and vegan food tech is absolutely unbelievable. And as you said, you can get similar tastes and similar textures of foods that you love and you like and you're used to and you want, without causing all the damage and the destruction and the pain and the suffering. And then sometimes people say, oh, but it's not the same. It's not the same. So to that I said, okay, so you have to make a choice. Mm-hmm. Are you willing to sacrifice a little bit of the taste and texture and feel, but help support a better world for the planet, the animals, and human health? Or for that little bit of extra taste and texture, are you willing to support a world and an industry and a lifestyle that just continues to cause such damage and destruction? That's your personal choice. That's what I say to people. And so my line is like, I'm willing to give up, a bit of the taste to make the world a better place. That's my go-to line. I'm willing to give up a little bit of taste to make the world a better place. And I eat delicious food. I really personally don't buy all of those alternative kind of substitution kind of things. That's just my choice. I never got used to it. I don't feel like I need it or even really want it. I'm not judging it at all. People like that, great. And if it's helping people to go vegan more easily, it's an amazing thing. I eat such yummy food, I eat such delicious food. It's what we're used to. And when we realize that just for the taste, like you said, the ta'ava, if I'm doing something just for the taste, and that, with all due love and respect, it's a very selfish way of living, right? I know everything, I know all that information, and I still don't care because I want the taste. And that's what the Torah says in multiple places. It connects eating meat to ta'ava, which in Judaism, first of all, it means lust. And in Judaism, that's not a good thing. We're supposed to run away from our lust. We are supposed to overcome our lust. We are supposed to work on ourselves not to give into our lust. And in the Gemara and the Talmud, it says that a person should only eat meat out of ta'ava, out of lust, which really, the way I understand it, is that they really try. They tried so hard, they just couldn't do it, right? Not that, okay, still, it's not the best thing to do, but still, at least they understand where it's coming from. And and at least they understand that they were supposed to really try so hard to overcome it, to not eat it at all, right? So there's so many teachings like that just really show us that eating meat is just connected to something that's not looked upon in a positive way in Judaism.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate all your answers, really fabulous. So I wonder, if you have any final thoughts, perhaps some things that my questions did not bring out that you want to get to our audience.
I think maybe the one thing I would say that's connected to some of the things we've talked about, but in a different kind of way, is that I think, you asked about the rabbis and other Jews and why people are not, connecting to this, maybe more. Look, I think we're seeing a dual reality right now. More and more people are going vegetarian and vegan. And at the same time, it seems like there's still much meat eating out there, like that's like at least what we see in Israel. I'm sure around the world as well. So we're seeing changes, and yet the problem seems to be still getting bigger. But I feel like at the core, we need to remember what Judaism is all about. Why Judaism even came into the world in the first place over 3,000 years ago. What was its mission? What is its mission? What are we supposed to be accomplishing? And when you go into the deeper mystical texts of our tradition, whether it's in the Hasidic teachings or in the Kabbalistic teachings, they really bring out that we're here, first and foremost, as individuals to work on ourselves and become the best version of ourselves possible. And that's connected to Tikkun Olam. That's connected to making this world a better place. That the ultimate vision, the main vision of Judaism through all of our mitzvot, through all of our laws and values, is to make this world a better place, to fix the brokenness in this world, to make this world a godly place. And for me, in 2023, I don't see, again, there's many things that people can be focusing on. There's many different issues, problems, kinds of brokenness in the world. But I feel like if you were going to just pick one thing that you could work on, that you can fix, that you can elevate, that you can improve upon, and it would have drastic positive impacts in many different ways around the world, it's what we eat, how we eat. It's what we decide to buy in the store, put it on our plate, and put in our bodies.
Okay, I want to thank you very much, and you have a very well-deserved title of Vegan Rabbi, and want to wish you much hatzlacha, much continued success, and all the things you're doing. And I certainly look forward to continue to work with you because, as you know, there's no maybe more important issue today, and to avert a climate catastrophe. And as we've both been saying, no way that's going to happen. Many things, of course, have to be done, but shifting to a plant-based diet, to a vegan diet. By the way, we all know the expression, the elephant in the room. Now we have to start talking about the cow in the room, because it's amazing how so many studies come out, and it's true, we have to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Everybody's aware of that, they're working on it, but how often they just are not considering the tremendous impact of animal-based agriculture. So what you're doing is wonderful. Again, looking forward to continue to work with you, and I want to thank you very much, and planning to really distribute this wonderful interview very widely, and hope it'll have a great impact. So many thanks for being on with me.
Thank you so much, Richard, and thank you for everything that you have been doing and continue to do. You've inspired so many people to continue this very, very important work. So thank you.
Okay, so Toda Rabah and shalom.